Hello listeners, welcome back. In today's episode, I'm going to dive into the number one cause of suffering. I'm specifically going to look at in relationships. For those of you in trauma recovery, relationships at some point is going to be a core focus, whether it be trusting again, sharing more of your authentic self, maybe even being ready for a relationship, or just wanting to meet new people, to move on with life and to connect with people more. At some point, how you relate to people, and specifically the assumptions or meaning that you make, either about those who are already in your life or those who you're about to meet in the future. I'm going to take a deep dive real quick into some solid gold around what can cause us suffering and hold us back from getting the connection and the relationships that we really desire. So I'm going to drop some gold here. You might want to write this down because you remember this simple little insight. I can personally guarantee it will save you a lot of time and suffering and misery. Number one cause of suffering in relationships comes from what we make it mean when people don't behave in the ways that we want. I'm going to let that sink in and repeat it again. The number one cause of suffering in relationships comes from what we make it mean when people don't behave in the ways that we want. You see, when we witness something in their behaviour, for example, we might interpret in a way that makes us feel terrible about something. We can make it mean something awful about them, or maybe sometimes it's about ourselves, or maybe even just about the relationship. And then we blame them for how often we feel. And the result of that is disconnection. That space is a space of misery that can be avoided if we remember or ask ourselves, what am I making this mean in this moment? What's the story that I'm telling myself about them or about me or the relationship? One that I've heard many a time is, well, I told them this specific thing and they just said, I'm here if you need me. Why didn't they say something more than that? Why didn't they ask me more about how that made me feel or what happened? They must not care about me, or maybe I shouldn't have trusted them with this story in the first place. They didn't say a lot when I told them. When in reality, that's the meaning that we're placing over one part of a conversation. When actually it's entirely possible, for a random example, that the person maybe didn't know what to say, but they did deeply care when they heard you tell them. Or they were worried about saying the wrong thing, so they got a bit anxious and froze. Might not actually have any meaning about how trustworthy they are or how invested they are in us. But this can show up in all sorts of big ways and sneaky little ways day to day. So with this little insight, I'd encourage you to experiment, not just take me at my word. This doesn't have any impact or meaning unless you incorporate it into your life. You take this and you do something with it. Ask yourself on a regular basis about anything and everything. What is the story I'm telling myself right now? What meaning am I adding to this? Everyday things like missing a subway or the way that someone's ended their email. We're telling stories all the time. And the quicker we are to be aware of the stories that make us feel like crap, the quicker we can drop them and see where that takes us, dropping that weight. So thank you for listening for today's episode. This was helpful or you resonate with it, drop a like or a comment below. As always, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.